Uh-oh, guys. The interior lights went out on the Corvette. See up ahead, we got headlights, which is a good thing, but knowing our speed is a little difficult. Can't really follow the flow of traffic. So this is definitely something new, as in first time this has happened. And I'm sitting here thinking, is it the switch or is it a fuse? Now you can see the little blue light comes on for my brights. That's working still. And if I can get to it, the turn signal light is still working, but nothing in the center console is lit up. The radio does not, it's not the original to the car, and that light's always on, so someone must have powered it directly to 12 volts when the key's on. But one other thing that works, hang on, there's a car coming, I should probably pay attention. Ha! Use the flash on my phone. Genius. Okay, so the headlight switch is right over here, and it has two positions. When you pull it out, the first position is like your parking lights, and then you pull it all the way out to get your headlights. Now, it also rotates, and that works as a dimmer for the interior lights. Hang on, we got a stop sign. And if you rotate it all the way to the left, that turns on the interior light, but that is still working, obviously. But I'm kind of surprised when I kind of wiggle this and move it around, I can't get these to blink or flicker, anything like that. Look at that. Dang mice getting in my car and they left their nuts behind. Yeah, better not let me get a hold of their nuts, they'll be gone. Anyway, my money's on the switch is bad, but the fuse is easier to check. So tomorrow, I guess that's something to look at. Always something when you got an old car. Just when you're thinking, I got everything fixed, this thing's running great, there ain't a problem with it. Boom! You spoke too soon, sucker. Something's gonna break now. Should have kept your mouth shut. Alright, I'll try and tail end this with how we fix it. One thing I didn't mention last night that's kind of an obvious possible cause with Corvettes, being all the fiberglass and everything, is a ground issue could be causing this. So, no instrument panel, gauge, lights. 3 possible causes. I think my most likely cause is the headlight switch. You could also have a blown fuse or a bad ground. Easiest thing to do is to first check the fuse, and there's actually a fuse in the box that says instrument lamps or instrument cluster or something like that. So we're going to check that first. For checking the fuse, you're going to need a test light. Also, the instrument cluster lights get their power at the headlight switch from the parking lights. So you got to pull it out just the first notch. So you have your parking lights on. And that bottom one to the left is your instrument panel light. Lights are working again. But let me show you what happens. I am going to touch the headlight switch, and they completely go out. Now look at that. If I jiggle it a little bit, I can get them to come on. Now, I don't know why I couldn't jiggle it and get it to work the other day. Here's the thing. The rheostat is bad in the headlight switch. It is meant to be a dimmer. You should be able to dim all of these lights, and as soon as I touch it, it goes out completely. And I don't know if... yeah, I don't have any dim at all. So here's a couple of things to keep in mind if you have a C3 Corvette and your instrument lights go out at some time down the road, whether it be the tach and speedometer or your center cluster lights there, you more or less have 3 potential options. It could be the fuse, it could be the headlight switch, which we found out is my problem, or it could be a bad ground, because these Corvettes are fiberglass and they always have bad grounds. Those are your 3 most likely culprits. So obviously the easiest thing to check is the fuse. It is the lowermost fuse on the left-hand side in your fuse panel. It is labeled like instrument lamps or something like that. It's a very small fuse. Some people say it's supposed to be 5 amp. Other people say it's supposed to be 7.5 amp. Either way, you should be fine. Now to test that, you need to pull your switch out into the first position, because the lights here are powered by your parking lights, and it gets its power from your headlight switch. So with that in the first position, you should check that fuse with the test light. Make sure you have a good ground. I grounded to the brake pedal post, whatever it's called. And you should have power on both sides, both at the prongs and at the fuse itself, because it's possible you could just be getting a bad connection there. You may have to clean the contacts at the fuse box so the contacts are touching the fuse correctly, then the fuse is transferring power to the other side, and all of that. At first, when I tested it, I thought my problem was some corrosion at the fuse panel, because I had power and then I didn't have power. I cleaned up the contacts and everything, put the fuse back in, had absolutely no power until I started jiggling around with the switch, then bam, it was working again. So that's something to consider. Now at some point I'm going to have to take out my headlight switch, and we'll do a separate video on that. Some people say you can come up under the dash. Other people say you have to remove the front panel. After just being under there and looking up, I can't imagine you can just reach from down there and get this switch out up here. That sounds incredibly difficult. So I think we're going to end up taking the dash pad out, but we'll see how that goes. Now the grounding issue is just a headache to chase down. What you could do, if none of your lights are working, whichever one is the easiest bulb to access. I don't know how, I didn't pay attention to that, how easy it would be to take out either of these bulbs or maybe something on the right side of this instrument cluster. Anyway, there's a gray wire that goes to each one of these. And then the lights ground to the socket, and the socket grounds to whatever it is plugged into, and that's how you get your grounds. So if you ran a test wire from the socket, take one of these lights out, touch just the socket, and run it directly to your battery, and then you hit your parking light switch, put it in the first position. If the light comes on, then you have a bad ground. If it still doesn't come on, then you're not getting power to the lights. And again, we're looking at the fuse panel, we're looking at the switch. Also, I believe the ground for the radio is somehow tied in with these lights. So if you've recently messed with your radio, you may have messed with your grounds for all your instrument panel lights. Now, another thing you could be doing, if your instrument panel or instrument cluster lights fuse is blown, you put in a new one and it keeps blowing it, then you probably have a short, and the most likely is that one of your gray wires, remember there's a gray wire to every single one of these, if it's pinched somewhere, if it's grounding to something, then you're going to instantly be blowing fuses. And at that point, you just have to find what wire is damaged. If you do end up having to replace the headlight switch, make sure you get the right one, because your vacuum for your headlights goes to that switch. You have 2 vacuum lines, so you got to get the right one. I did see Mid-America Corvette sells them on Amazon, so I'll put a link to that one down below. That's the one I'm going to buy. I kind of figured before I even got out here that I had a bad headlight switch, so I already looked that up. Anyway, hopefully this helps someone down the line on problem solving a no instrument light problem. Thanks for watching.